All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a huge and honestly a pretty confusing question today. In a world totally run by tech giants, why in the world doesn't Europe have one of its own? Let's get into it.
Just take a look at this. It tells you everything you need to know in a single glance. Of the 10 biggest tech companies on the entire planet, 8 of them are American, 2 are from Asia, and Europe, a big, fat zero. We all know Apple, Microsoft, Google, but there's a huge empty space where a European giant should be.
And it's weird, right? Europe has some of the best scientists on Earth, absolutely brilliant engineers, and there's plenty of money floating around. So, what's the deal? Why can't the continent seem to produce its own titans of tech? That's exactly what we're going to unpack.
So, our investigation really has to start at the very beginning, with the idea, the invention itself. And right away, we hit a major problem, a problem that's perfectly captured by a story you definitely know, but maybe not from this angle. Okay, picture this. It's 1987, and a German engineer named Karl-Heinz Brandenburg invents the MP3. It's an incredible piece of tech cooked up in a world-class German research lab. But who got rich from it? Not Brandenburg. No, it was Steve Jobs and Apple, who simply built a cool little box around that European invention, the iPod, and completely changed the world. This story, it just perfectly sums up a huge part of the problem. And there's actually a name for this. It's called the European paradox, and it's this incredibly frustrating reality that Europe is amazing at top-tier research, but then just consistently fumbles the ball when it comes to turning that research into a world-beating business. Turns out, a great idea isn't enough. You've got to build a company around it.
So why? Why does this keep happening? Well, a big piece of the puzzle is hiding in plain sight. It's the universities. In Europe, most are owned by the state, and their whole mission is research and teaching. You hear these crazy stories of founders being told by their professors that starting a company is basically throwing your life away. Now compare that to the US, where places like Stanford act like businesses themselves. They actively push entrepreneurship, and they even take a cut of the companies their students build. It's a totally different mindset.
And the results of that cultural gap? They're undeniable. This chart shows that in just 1 year, North American universities created almost double the number of startups as all of Europe combined. You really have to wonder, if Brandenburg had been at a place like Stanford, would he have invented both the MP3 and the iPod? Okay, so let's imagine a European startup actually beats the odds. It gets founded, it's got a fantastic product. Great, now it runs smack into the second giant hurdle, the map of Europe itself. Think about it. An American startup gets a single, massive market of over 330 million people who all speak the same language, watch the same TV, and follow the same laws. A European startup, they get this, a crazy quilt of 27 different countries. Just translating your website and your legal paperwork for every country is a huge, expensive nightmare. Let's look at a real-world case.
Take the German digital bank N26. After 9 years of hard work, they've managed to get 8 million customers. And that's a respectable number, for sure.
But now look at its American counterpart, Chime. In about the same amount of time, playing in that one big, unified market, they've signed up over 20 million customers. That's nearly 3 times as many. That giant home market is like a launch pad. It lets US companies get huge, fast, before they even have to think about going global. And this brings us to the final set of obstacles. And honestly, they might be the highest walls of all. It's what stops a promising European company from becoming a global giant, getting the right people and getting the right money. The tech world moves at lightning speed. It's all about experimenting and, well, mostly failing. Something like 80% of projects don't work out. In the US, the hire and fire culture means companies can be incredibly nimble. They can shut down a failed project, lay off that team, and pour all those resources into the next big thing, like AI. In Europe, though, employee protections are much stronger, which is great for workers, don't get me wrong, but it makes companies way less flexible and a lot more scared to take those big risks. And get this quote. This is from the head of the Works Council at SAP, Germany's biggest tech company. Talking about layoffs, he said the severance packages are so generous, it would be stupid to stay. When the employee representative himself is pointing out how expensive it is to restructure, you're dealing with a system that values stability way more than agility. And that's a really tough environment for a fast-growing tech company. And then there's the money. To get big, you need rocket fuel. And in tech, that fuel is venture capital. And as you can see, the difference here is it's staggering. In 2023, US startups pulled in more than 2.5 times the VC funding of all European startups combined. But wait, here's the real kicker. If you actually look at where Europe's venture capital comes from, almost half of it is American money. So Europe's own startup scene is massively dependent on cash from the very country it's supposed to be competing against. It's wild.
Now, the key point here is that it's not because Europe is poor. Far from it. European banks manage $30 trillion. That's more than US banks. The problem is that a bunch of strict regulations put in place with good intentions after the financial crisis basically force banks to play it super, super safe. They have to park that money in things like government bonds instead of taking a chance on high-risk, high-reward startups. The money's there, it's just locked in a vault.
And the very last obstacle? Well, believe it or not, it's the government itself. The US government basically built Silicon Valley by funneling tons of money from NASA and the Pentagon into tech companies. Europe can't do that because of its own state aid laws. These rules were created to stop, say, Germany from giving its steel industry a ton of cash to crush a French competitor. It's meant to keep the internal market fair. But that same rule means Germany can't just pick a promising startup and pour billions into it to create a national champion. It's a rule designed to protect fairness that ends up killing ambition. So the hurdles are just immense, right? A risk-averse culture, a fragmented market, rigid labor laws, locked-up capital. It's a long list. But after laying all this out, we have to wonder, maybe we're asking the wrong question entirely.
I mean, does the goal for Europe have to be creating another Google or a European version of Meta? Maybe trying to beat the Americans at their own game, this mass-market, consumer-focused game, is just a battle Europe can't win. What if Europe decided to play a totally different game? What if success for Europe looks completely different? Instead of one giant consumer company, what about a whole ecosystem of highly specialized, world-leading companies that sell to other businesses? Or what if Europe focused on dominating deep tech areas like biotech and green energy, fields where complex regulations, which are an EU specialty, actually act as a shield against competitors? Maybe the goal isn't just to get big, but to build tech champions that actually reflect European values, like privacy and social good.
It's a pretty powerful idea, right? That Europe's tech future isn't about copying Silicon Valley, but about building something totally new, something uniquely European. And that, of course, leaves us with one final, absolutely critical question. If that's the real path forward, is there a candidate out there ready to lead the way?